What a sight this is. I could tell you not to watch episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, Rise of Bullshit. Now, you see the Phantom Menace, you see what they talk about. You see Angry Joe, Vine Sauce, lots of people. Matt Jarbo, John Campia, a lot of YouTubers with monetized videos. I'm just going to tell you how I feel about this. I'm not going to go see it. I don't care about Star Wars anymore. Fuck Disney Star Wars. Now, what you're seeing here, I've talked about this before so many times, people can get tired of it. This is the best Star Wars story ever. Now, what you have here is Legacy. Now, in Legacy, you have different factions. This takes place 100 years after Return of the Jedi, over 100 years. And this is dealing with, like George Lucas wanted, fathers and sons and generational gaps. And so you're dealing with fathers and sons passed down through the generations of Skywalkers. In the case of this long story that spanned 5 years, which could be construed as having to watch 3 movies over 6 years. This is about uncles and brothers and husbands, wives, and dealing with Kate Skywalker. So you have different factions. In these two, you have, you have the beautiful Darth Talon, of course. You have different factions, okay? So there was a war, and the war took place between... so what had happened was, after Return of the Jedi, there was a new order, a new empire. Not a new empire. It was kind of an empire composite, but it was a new republic with the empire kind of slightly dissolved into republic officers. Basically, what you saw if you watched the Clone Wars with Dave Filoni's animated series of Clone Wars, you saw cloners, and you saw people who would eventually become the Empire, Imperial officers. The guy in the round table, the one with the mustache, I forgot, Yularen, Admiral Yularen, I think it's called. Yularen was a Republic officer and became an Imperial officer. So you had the New Republic, and you had, I think you had, what is it? That blue guy. What's his name? He was a Chiss. He's the enemy in Star Wars Rebels. He was an enemy. You had the Swarm Wars. So you had a new Republic. You had the new Jedi Order, not a First Order, with Luke Skywalker training new Jedi to take over. Leia would eventually help out, but she didn't do as much as Luke. You had Mara Jade, who was the Emperor's hand, who you could retcon into Disney's continuity as one of the Inquisitors. Maybe that's who needs to come back. But there was also the Yuuzhan Vong, which were the plant people who were forcing terraforming, kind of like the Genesis device from Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. But they would terraform and infest different planets, and there was a whole war with the Yuuzhan Vong soldiers and the new Jedi. You had some Jedi turned to Sith. But through all those decades, you had a galactic alliance. And the Galactic Alliance is shattered because the Jedi who were on the council worked with one was Cole Skywalker, worked with the Yuuzhan Vong because the Yuuzhan Vong now are sort of a fraction of what they were. You know, it's like we freed the Japanese from the internment camps. We are sorry. We cannot generalize all Japanese or all Yuuzhan Vong as bad people. We're not going to vilify them. But we can work with them. They can work with us. We'll work in peace. But with the Yuuzhan Vong, in this case, it's a trust-distrust issue. So they terraform, and they did parts of that on Coruscant, but only on conditions that they would do it, with permission from the Galactic Alliance. So the New Republic is very similar to the Old Republic from the prequels, from episodes 1, 2, and 3. And so Cole Skywalker, a descendant of Luke and Mara Jade's son Ben, Cole Skywalker helps terraform with a woman, a love interest, a female senior member of the Yuuzhan Vong. But the terraforming incident goes wrong. The Sith are behind this, and they help divide between the Galactic Empire, that is, or benign empire, a good empire with Emperor Fel, a descendant of Jagged Fel, at the throne, and the Jedi and the Empire itself. So the Empire is divided. So there's different factions. There's Imperial Jedi. There's the Black Sun. There is Quinlan Voss's clan, the Guardians on, I think, Kifex, planet Kifex, like police officer Jedi. You have stormtroopers versus stormtroopers. You have all this stuff going on. So there's different factions, different groups of people. Here you have the Sith. Darth Krayt, who was a Sharad Het, who was the son of Sharad Het, who was a Jedi. This man was a Jedi during the Clone Wars and eventually turned to Sith and formed, which is called bullshit semantics, the One Sith, an army of Sith. And I didn't realize until I watched the original trilogy that you could only have two. Of course, George backpedaled and put like a Sith assassin as three. And that happened in Darth Plagueis novel and other things. Asajj Ventress being a Sith assassin who was seen as usurping the throne, and Dooku tried to have her killed, but killed her later on. Anyway, so Darth Krayt here, who looks like a heavy metal villain. You know, I always picture heavy metal music to every comic book I was reading here, instead of orchestra. So heavy metal going throughout Star Wars, like a new generation. So that's a great way to kind of get immersed when you're reading this. So he looks like an ancient tribal warrior instead of mechanical or modern like Darth Vader, or necessarily red like Darth Maul. Here you have a sexy Darth Maul, which is Darth Talon, and then I keep forgetting who he is. Darth something. I don't remember. Can't remember some of these. Here is Cade. Now Cade was at the Temple of Ossus, on Ossus Jedi Temple, and he's the son of Cole, who died for him against an army of Sith. Emperor Fel was going to go and talk to the Jedi to figure out what happened with the terraforming incident that the Sith had framed them for, and the Sith took over Fel's throne. Fel used a clone to throw them off, while Fel ran to hide. So the real Emperor is on the run, and Krayt, who took over, is kind of like now trying to divide the Empire. So the Empire is divided. You have Stormtrooper versus Stormtrooper, Imperial officer versus Imperial officer, a Sith Empire versus a good Empire from the New Republic. So you have here, like Luke, Han, and Leia, you have your three here. But in a way, like Cade is like everything you wanted in Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. I remember George Lucas said he liked Luke Skywalker, but maybe he'd rather prefer Han Solo. This is a bounty hunter now. He was lost in the space and then discovered by pirates. And so he had to work with pirates to survive and deny his Jedi heritage or his powers. This is the Emperor. Emperor Fel, bastard that he was going to subjugate his people on Coruscant to death over a Sith weapon that would have killed everyone but the Sith. Only, see, the thing was, everybody was worried that Cade Skywalker would have turned to the dark side, and Cade Skywalker could dabble in the dark side, but Cade Skywalker's biggest dark side power was his ability to bring back people to life, something that Darth Plagueis wanted so bad, and something that Anakin Skywalker and Palpatine, Darth Vader and Palpatine were supposed to get, and they never could get it. But Cade Skywalker had that ability, but it was dabbled in the dark side. And here's another faction of people. These are missionaries, people who are helping, like good Samaritans, random acts of kindness. These are people who are just not fighters at all. She is actually trained to become an Imperial Jedi. Val has a twin brother, Shadow Val, like Luke and Leia. She has a twin brother who is a Jedi. So there's different factions going on. And back to focus, back to picture. And you can see here very clearly, this is Stormtrooper versus Stormtrooper to the death. Here you've got Imperials and Jedi united. So this is a guy, he looks like he's based on an actor, this sort of white-haired old man from like, I don't know if it was the Burbs or whatever. He always plays priest. So this was based on an actor. This is Wolf Sazin and Shadow Val, his sister being a missionary. These are both old school Jedi. And old school Jedi, they have their flaws. Sith have their flaws, definitely. Bounty hunters have their flaws. Missionaries have their flaws. There's positives and negatives to each political group of characters. Here are the Imperial Jedi who wear similar suits and lightsabers and colors of the lightsabers. All white, no color to them. This is the most important goddamn version of Luke Skywalker. This is Luke as a Force ghost. Now, I think George Lucas had a rule before Disney that you could not reveal the fates of the other characters, like what is it, Lando, Calrissian, and Leia and Han. Chewbacca seemed to be an exception. Maybe he just went under his radar before that time, and he decided to put his foot down and say, okay, look, we cannot be killing off characters without my signing off on it. So Chewbacca died in the original canon, and now it's Han Solo. But Luke was a Force ghost who helped try to get Cade with his addiction to death. So Cade's got problems. He's got death stick problems. He's hooked on death sticks. He answers to a pirate with a robotic hind leg who doesn't give a shit about him and would turn him over to the Empire in a heartbeat if he knew he was a Jedi, which he did several times. So Jariah Sin, the dude with the dreadlocks, and the pink girl with the blue hair, Delia Blue, who's a mechanic. These three on the Minox ship, they're always working together, but Luke has to straighten out Cade. He is unlike Luke, unlike Jake Skywalker. He really does. He's his moral ground. Now it's always ambiguous as to whether or not he's really there or if Cade's imagining him. And meanwhile, you've got this is going back to 7 years before when Cade was still a child, a teenager, defending his dad at the Jedi Temple from the Sith who killed him, and his son had to run off, and Wolf was dying. Wolf Sazin, the one in the previous cover, was dying, and Cade used his bring back to life a Force Sith power to bring him back. So here we're looking at, now there's a significant character called Nina Calix. Think of Angelina Jolie with black hair tied up in a bun and an Imperial suit, or kind of like Kate Blanchett's character. And then you see this person here. Now this is Morgan Cord, who, let me put a couple more issues here so we can speed this up. Morgan Cord is a bounty hunter who happens to look like Nina Calix, and that's because she is. She lives two lives. Here you see that it's revealed that she is the mother of Cade Skywalker. So she was a bounty hunter who turned to being an Imperial officer for the Academy, working for Emperor Fel, working for the benign Empire, the less Sithy Empire, and then it became a Sith Empire, and then she still stuck around. Dark Talon is the most sexiest looking female in there, but Nina Calix is almost as sexy because not only is she a good MILF, but also she is underhanded. She is very, very clever and plots everything very well. I read this recently, all these stories, and it has not aged. Cade Skywalker goes back to Ossus where he started, and then we see now Cole Skywalker and Nina Calix or Morgan Cord were a couple, and she gave birth to Cade Skywalker. This was Cole Skywalker's second love, his second girlfriend before he died. So it's another story that it never dives into it, but if you look closely at the panels, you can see Emperor Fel. Now Emperor Fel, when he ran from Coruscant, he went to Bastion, and Bastion in the old EU is a battlefield planet so that in case, when the Empire was trying to stay alive after the fall of Palpatine, they were trying to do it in that it was a fortified planet, so they could just kind of keep strangers at bay. So it was a place to hide from Darth Krayt and his forces, so that they couldn't mess with him. Here we do have a Wookiee and a scoundrel. It's like this is kind of like if you think of the actress who played Nancy Drew, not Kennedy, not the TV show, but the last movie from Nancy Drew. This would be like, you can imagine her. Of course, I think she could play Ahsoka Tano as well as this character. And then you have a Wookiee. So they have a ship called the Grinning Liar, which is a giant red ship. The Grinning Liar being another ship besides the Minoc. And we get into the origins. So these are the origins here. We learn about Asherad Het becoming Darth Krayt. Obi-Wan has a cameo because he was going to settle on Tatooine with the other Tusken Raiders, and Obi-Wan shamed him in front of in sort of his brethren. He could no longer hold the Gaddafi being that long staff that Tusken Raiders hold on to. Cray, I mean, Cade Skywalker dabbled in being a Sith. You notice the pants he wears is similar to Vader's. I forgot to mention that when he went to Ossus, Vader and Mara Jade, Anakin kind of show up as cameos. So you do see a little bit of the original and prequel trilogy stuff, but not by much, because most of it's really focusing on these characters, using very few new assets, but mostly the original assets. Here you see, I forget this guy's name. This is the man who killed Cole Skywalker and took off the arm of Wolf Sazin, and that's Darth Talon. We got a face-off here. The thing about Darth Krayt is that the Yuuzhan Vong affected him. Now he went to Korriban, or Morabon, if you are a purist in the Clone Wars, to the Sith planet to learn information after he escaped Tatooine, and after he fled after the Clone Wars. He learned ancient Sith holocrons, ancient Sith text, and then he stowed away on a ship and was captured by the Yuuzhan Vong. And because he lost his arm, he was given new arms by an old Jedi who dabbled in Sith powers and ancient magic, and he's now inflicted with a virus from the Yuuzhan Vong. And only Cade Skywalker, with his healing ability to bring people back to life with like electric shock, like Palpatine, he wants him to cure him, and that's what the first third of this is about. You have the Last Stand, the Galactic Alliance. This is, I forget who this is, Gar Stasi, I think, Admiral Gar Stasi. I forget what species he is. He looks similar to Cad Bane almost. So Gar Stasi is very similar to Akbar, but it's like as though Akbar doesn't. It's like if Akbar didn't trust Mon Mothma, or Akbar didn't trust Luke Skywalker, but he's still trying to do the good fight. That's who Admiral Gar Stasi is. You have different factions. Now, this is the Order 66 section of this story, in which I'm looking at my comic books in the back. I have comic books in the back and front, in which he has his Sith army. So Krayt has different factions. He has Hand of Krayt, which are his vice president. Well, he has, okay, Darth Warlock is his vice president. And then he has, let's see, two commanders below Warlock, which are Darth Talon, Darth Nil. Let me see, hold on. This is Darth Nil, this one here. So Darth Nil and Darth Talon are his hands, and below his hands are his fists. Different fact, like lieutenants in mafias. So they kill a fraction of the Mon Calamari, a big fraction, like 10%. And for every day that passes, they're going to kill more. And this is because Gar Stasi, the one I showed you, took down a fraction of Darth Krayt's Imperial forces and took a hold of a ship. So to retaliate, he went to Dak, which is now Mon Calamari in canon, but it was called Dak or Mon Calamari in the old canon. It's a planet surrounded by shipyards. But I think the lost episodes of Clone Wars show that there's a different planet that has that instead. It's weird. But there's a couple of comic books that foreshadow season 4 of Clone Wars. So here you have, this is, I think his name is Raj or Rav. This is the guy that Cade Skywalker, Delia Blue, and Jariah Sin worked for years. He discovered him when he was floating in space after being in an X-wing, helping his fellow Jedi escape the massacre on Ossus when he was a child, and he grew up with this traitor being a bounty hunter, watching his parental bounty hunters kill people and raid and pillage. This happened especially with Jariah Sin's father, and that's why he hates Jedi. Cade could never tell his best friend he was a Jedi because this guy hated Jedi for years because of what happened to his father. This is Nat Skywalker called Bantha Rock, which is he lives on a planet with adopted kids and his wife of different ethnicity. And he's like think of the guy from I forget his name, the one who's the dad in charge of American Chopper, the big tough guy with a big mustache. That's kind of like this guy right here. You have a rugged Skywalker, but unlike Luke, he's not depressed. He's got a good family on the same planet that Quinlan Vos came from, the police officer Jedi. So you got the hidden temple, which are a bunch of ships, and we learned about also the Sith, who are. It is revealed even through old comic books that the Sith possess people. The Sith can possess living things and take control. So unlike Jedi would come back as Force ghosts, you have Sith possessing people. That's the secret, like with Darth Tenebrow, Darth Plagueis's mentor, and Darth Plagueis possibly living forever in other people, but it's undetermined. This is a crossover that showed another Sith, ancient Sith, Carnus Muir, taking over a Jedi in the form of a bracelet. Uh, and in this one, Darth Krayt is presumably dead and is in stasis. This is the two-part story that goes with. It's very similar to season 4 of the Clone Wars, in which the Mon Calamari are imprisoned and sent to labor camps underwater. So this was after a large amount of them was killed. You go on and on and on. This is the one Sith. So this is Darth Strafe, one of the fists of Krayt that becomes one of the hands because Darth Nil is incapacitated. If you remember the Imperial Jedi I just showed you, one of them, Azlyn Rae, who helped defeat Krayt the first time, is seriously injured and is put in a Darth Vader type, the same type of robot suit that Vader was put in, Anakin became Vader. And it caused Cade Skywalker and Azlyn Rae, the redhead Imperial Jedi, they were childhood friends, lovers, and Cade Skywalker hits on girls pretty much. This is a very young adult themed. It's not exactly rated R, but somewhere between PG-13 and R. This is not something Disney would like because it does touch upon some violence and some adult themes. So, I mean, Cade Skywalker picks up on his sister, by accident, of course. He loves Delia, but he picks up on Darth Talon and has sex with Darth Talon. He tries to pick up on different alien species. And Azlyn Rae was his childhood friend, but if you remember Nat Skywalker, I just showed you, his wife his wife is a healer who will only heal people who want to be healed. And Cade said nobody wants to die. So he did the best he could, but he eventually had to be off planet. His uncle Nat didn't want him around. So the three of them left. Cade Skywalker, Delia, and Jiraiya left to go to Tatooine. We have another ship battle here. This is the 4-part series that deals with Cade going to Tatooine. And I think the rest of it's in the other books. But he goes to Tatooine to kind of clear his head to figure out what to do next. He runs into Luke in a vision. So we revisit episode 4 and what his life was like. And so we go back to Tatooine, but not for too long. So, Delia Blue gets a lesson in what she was like. We learned that she used to be a missionary, just like Val and Marasiah Fel, the girl you saw, Emperor Fel's daughter that I showed you before. A lot of characters. So that happened. Now, these last 3 books that I'm going to show you very quickly. This is Darth Maladai, who is very similar to the Yuuzhan Vong female, in which she's a witch doctor. She concocts all kinds of poisons and medicines. She captured Delia Blue. And Cade Skywalker learned how to channel his power to resurrect people properly. Now he knows how to heal people by using his heart instead of forcing electricity down people's throats. So slowly he embraced healing with with sentimentality, but also accepting that the person could also die, and that's okay. As Yoda said, you must learn to let go of the things you fear to lose. So this one here is another battle. We also deal with a Tarkin type of character, Vol Eason, who instead of using Death Stars to blow up planets, he uses poisons. Very similar to that blue character or that gray character, if you remember that from season 1 of the Clone Wars, where he went to Naboo to poison the water and poison the air. That's the Vol Eason in this one. Uh, this is the guy. This is Darth. That's Darth Azard, and that's Vol Eason, who's got toxins and poisons, all kinds of stuff. There's no Gungans, thankfully, in this one, right? And through all of this, Krayt comes back to life, cured of his Yuuzhan Vong afflictions, no longer diseased. There's a lot going on here, okay? A lot. Try to straighten this out. A lot going on with the Jedi, Sith. We have different types of Hutts, Hutt clan. There is Darth Talon. We have all kinds of characters. All of this leads to the fact that you have an ancient Jedi here. Let me show you, dabbling in midichlorians, the thing that George Lucas wanted to focus on in 7, 8, and 9. And here you have Sith troopers, real Sith troopers that would kill themselves at a command. You had Skull Squadron. That's Skull Squadron here. You had oh, hold on a minute. Okay, really quick, I didn't want to forget these. Now, based on The Mandalorian, this is one of the stormtroopers who had to fight against other stormtroopers because the Empire was divided. This is Hondo Kar, not related to Hondo Anaka. And then you have mother and son reunion or death match. Here is Garstasi and his subordinate. Here is Cole Skywalker. Now, at the end of this whole journey, Kate Skywalker has to face. He's dabbled in Sith powers. He's dabbled in Sith eyes. He makes a hard decision, and he kills Krayt, saying that he is a Jedi, and you are not my master. So this was really. I mean, it was great. Because after all that time, he made the right, after all these issues, 5 years, and Cade Skywalker made the right decision. Here you see the end of Emperor Fell. His first in command had to kill him. He had to kill the Emperor because he was going to blow up, he was going to destroy Coruscant. And the Sith troopers could plow through Bastion and plow through other planets. So they were suicidal soldiers. So Cade Skywalker decided to take Darth Krayt into the sun and burn him and go with him. But they decide, Luke Skywalker tells him, you got to choose what's right. If you are a Jedi, it's time to choose your own path. And that's what he does. He doesn't become Jedi. He doesn't become Sith. He doesn't become bounty hunter. He just becomes Cade Skywalker. And that's all that mattered. He doesn't try to do something else. They form a new government here. And the three of them reunite. Now, what I like at the end of this story is that the Sith do not all blow up, unlike Return of the Jedi. They go back into hiding because there's always going to be a Star Wars. There's always going to be Sith. There's always going to be Jedi. It's not going to ever change. But all the Darth Nil decides to take everybody and scatter them to the cosmos. So it's a more honest ending than simply blowing everybody up in Return of the Jedi. And here you see the midichlorians and the basic beings of midichlorians in the Force at the end, which George Lucas wanted at all. So this is great. This is the best Star Wars story. You know and understand every faction, everything piece of Star Wars galaxy that you can possibly understand. And that's why I say it's a waste of time going to see Rise of Skywalker or any more Disney Star Wars. I'm done with it. So it took me years to collect all these issues and the Vector one last week. So good luck to all of you. May the Force be with you or not.